Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we are going to be talking about a couple of rumors on Tesla's Hardware 4 for FSD. We got a couple of other rumors mixed in there as well, and then Tesla did actually end up having another event for their engineering headquarters update yesterday. Some interesting things from that, including new shots of the Cybertruck and more. Another kind of strange day for Tesla stock today, but finishing up 0.6% to $202.07, trailing slightly behind the Nasdaq, which was up almost 0.75% on the day. Couple of quick macro updates for today. Initial jobless claims did come in lower than expected and also lower than last week, so continuing to see signs of a tight labor market, which will give the Fed a little bit more leeway for raising rates. And then in addition, some economic data revised today. The GDP for the fourth quarter, that was revised down to 2.7% from 2.9%. Alongside that revision, PCE, or personal consumption expenditures, that index for the fourth quarter was revised up by about 0.4%. So core PCE revised up from 3.9% to 4.3%. We'll get the January PCE report tomorrow, but since the Fed meeting, not a whole lot of positives on the inflation front, unfortunately. CME Group's FedWatch tool now implies that there's a 27% expectation for a 50 basis point increase at the March meeting. That's up from about 15% a week ago, and then even more significant movement for May expectations, now putting 0% for a cumulative 25 basis point increase across both of those meetings. That's down from 20% a week prior. 50 basis points, still the expectation, but 75 basis points across those two meetings, now at 28% from 12% a week ago. So any kind of pause and rate hikes at this point looking extremely slim, especially on top of the meeting minutes that we had discussed yesterday. As for Tesla stock specifically, Tesla did receive an increased price target today from Deutsche Bank from $220 before, now to $250. The note focused on Investor Day, in summary saying, quote, "All in, we believe that increased clarity around the long-term trajectory for Tesla's global operations, volume growth, and especially scale and cost of Tesla's next-generation models could reinforce the bull case for the stock," end quote. I agree with that. It may not happen immediately, but I've talked for a long time about how analysts, anyone modeling the company, has difficulty doing that when we don't have very solid information about what comes next. Beyond Cybertruck and Semi, there's a lot of gray area up to Tesla's 20 million target, so hopefully Investor Day at least makes that a little bit more clear and easier to model for Wall Street and for investors. All right, moving beyond the stock in terms of news today, we are pretty heavy on rumors. TeslaScope on Twitter reporting a lot of information that they have pulled together from various conversations with what sounds like various employees. So definitely take it for what it's worth. Earlier this week, we had talked about that photo that TeslaScope had posted and said that the person sharing that photo claimed that the vehicle had Hardware 4. TeslaScope has since realized that that was an error, as we had suspected. So definitely could be errors mixed in with this information as well. There's always a little bit of that telephone effect. But my gut says that this is probably information they have received. I don't think they're fabricating this, so I do think it's worth covering. Just keep those things in mind. They've tweeted a number of different threads here with a lot of information, so I've tried to simplify that and bullet point it out. First is a lot of information on Hardware 4. They say, according to their sources, Tesla has already begun production of Hardware 4. That matches up with some of the other rumors we have seen. They say that Tesla's goal is for all vehicle models to be delivered with the new hardware by the end of summer, including from Berlin and China. Interestingly, here they say that no actively produced Model S, 3, X, or Y will include additional cameras. Instead, Tesla has begun to upgrade the resolution of cameras silently starting in late December 2022. So that would seem to align with the updates that we saw yesterday from the kilowatts on the S and the X cameras. Then they say, quote, "We've been told to inform customers not to expect additional cameras for at least a few months," end quote. This to me is the weirdest part. Remember, first bullet point saying Hardware 4 already in production, but then saying no additional cameras for at least a few months. That makes it sound like they would retrofit with these additional cameras on these newer vehicles, not older Hardware 3. But I think it's hard to justify why that might be the case. Are these additional cameras not ready yet in the supply chain? That would be surprising. Does Tesla just want to try to pass these off as Hardware 3 for some period of time, therefore not include the additional cameras right now until the production process is ready for all vehicles? I don't know, maybe, but that still seems like kind of a long shot. So I'm all ears on that one, but seems kind of strange. Continuing on, they say that the Cybertruck and the Semi will be the first vehicles to have the additional cameras from the start. They say before then, S and X will be the first vehicles to include the new cameras, and this will gradually transition to include 3 and Y before the end of the year. Presumably that would mean before end of summer to pair up with that previous bullet point. Lastly, on Hardware 4, they say the software to support it is still being finalized. No vehicles are going to be delivered until that is complete. Sounds like that is expected by the first week of March. Outside of Hardware 4, they say that the Model 3 and Y will receive a handful of exterior and interior changes, including new mirrors and a tri-band GPS, but they say that, quote, "These are minor changes overall," end quote. So the tri-band GPS we had already talked about from the green the only Hardware 4 update. but interesting to see that other changes are emphasized as being relatively minor overall. That is subject to interpretation, but it sounds like the communication was that these are more iterative, like we generally see from Tesla. So it seems a little bit bigger than that, whatever's going on here, but we'll see. All right, also a couple of things on FSD beta version 11. They say that 11.3 expansion is expected within the next week, plus or minus a few days. They say that the really long rollout process that we have seen for version 11, we've been talking about this for like a year now. They say that's been to avoid regressions. They really want this to ship as good of a feature as Navigate on Autopilot is today. So hopefully when we do see it, which hopefully very soon, it is quite polished. Sounds like the employees that Tesla Scope talked to emphasized that there has been a lot of effort, a lot of focus on returning things like autopark to vehicles without ultrasonic sensors. And then finally, I think this echoes a previous report that we had covered, but they say that Tesla rekindled the conversation with regulators in the EU and UK last year regarding FSD deployment to customers, and sounds like the goal there is for 2024. Last thing from Tesla Scope then, not that we need any more hype for Investor Day, but they say that they have been told that Elon Musk will make one of the most significant Tesla announcements in many years at Investor Day on March 1st. 6 more days. All right, moving on. Like we had talked about yesterday in the afternoon, Tesla had announced with Gavin Newsom that they would be locating their global engineering headquarters in California at the old HP office. Tesla's been kind of taking that office over for a while, so nothing too new there. I mentioned that they had scheduled a live stream for the evening. It turned out that did end up actually happening. Seems like this may be a little bit more for employees than for the audience. They didn't really discuss a whole lot new. Elon on stage for 8 minutes or so, just kind of reflecting on the long and robust history for Tesla in California over the last couple of decades. In his comments, he emphasized Investor Day being about Tesla investors, but also investors in Earth, that it would be a message of optimism and hope, and along with the rest of the industry, we're going to make it happen, alluding to the sheer scale of what is needed for transitioning to sustainable energy. Also interesting, he mentioned the Cybertruck. He said that there's, quote, a whole bunch of Cybertruck pre-production units that you can check out, end quote. Him saying a whole bunch is nice. Sounds like some progress. Usually we just see one. Tesla had mentioned having multiple of those production betas on the earnings call. And then beyond that, maybe the most interesting thing, actually included in the little preview video before the event started. In one scene, Tesla shows some design sketches, and those include what seem to be a couple of new sketches that we haven't seen before. So maybe Tesla dropping some hints here for Generation 3. There's a sketch in white, a sketch in blue that I don't recall seeing before. Those seem to be maybe suggestively positioned above a sketch that we had seen when Tesla was talking about a Shanghai design studio. So that led to a lot of speculation that maybe that's the next vehicle. Maybe this is an updated sketch for that vehicle. Looks pretty similar. I've tried to fix the perspective a bit here in Photoshop to try to make those line up. Obviously it's a reverse angle, but also looks like a bit of a shorter wheelbase hatchback type vehicle. And then trying to do the same with the blue sketch. Looks like that one might be a little bit more sedan or coupe style, but can get a little bit tricky when you start messing around with the perspectives. So interesting to see this, especially this close to Investor Day when we're supposed to hear a little bit more about Generation 3. Probably worth a reminder either way that an actual vehicle could end up looking quite different from this model or this design concept. Remember, Tesla shared some design sketches for the Model 3. Looks similar, and Tesla did make some changes from the prototype versions to production, but also some elements of it and some sketches that are quite different. As far as sketches go though, I think you could do a lot worse than this for the next model. Looks pretty good. Anyway, after Elon wrapped up on stage, he also tweeted some of the design history for Tesla vehicles, saying EV1 to T0 to Roadster to S3XY to Semi to Cybertruck, ... So more to come, and Elon continues to drop hints about that. As I mentioned, the Cybertruck did make an appearance, so Ryan from the Kilowatts again sharing a couple of photos or videos from that. Pretty far away, but we can see a little bit, including that the version shown here does have those more angular side mirrors. Separately from the engineering event, Ryan did also spot another vehicle with the front and rear covered, Model 3. These are what seem to be Project Highland, again based on that tweet that Elon had previously liked. So everything's still all covered here, but interestingly some new wheels, which look like maybe could be wheels that could be under an aero cap. So maybe Tesla trying out a new design for that, and I think these look pretty good. All right, next we've got an update from Reddit on Superchargers. I think we've talked before about Tesla's Magic Dock concept, which basically handles the task of the CCS adapter or the supercharger connector being used from the supercharger based on what the user needs. So if you need the supercharger connector, it unlocks from the CCS adapter, which will be retained on the pedestal. If you need the CCS adapter, that will lock to the end of the supercharger connector, and you can use that. So some photos here of what are apparently, according to this user, Tesla employees testing this out with a Rivian at this supercharger. So maybe Tesla close to rolling out Magic Dock widely. All right, last couple of things here. The IIHS has named their top safety pick and top safety pick plus vehicles for 2023. It's about 48 vehicles, 20 of which earn the Top Safety Pick Plus designation, and the Tesla Model Y among those vehicles earning that top safety rating. So not too surprising, Tesla usually scores top marks here, but the IIHS has said that they have made the rating process more difficult this year, setting a higher bar, sounded like particularly with side collisions. So good to see the Model Y still earning that designation. I was a little bit surprised not to see any other Tesla vehicles on here, but it looks like they haven't actually updated the ratings for mini vehicles. And in the video that the IIHS posted on this, they did say that they will be adding more models throughout 2023. So the Model 3 did earn that designation for 2022. I'd expect the same for 2023. For the S and the X, it doesn't look like they have tested those, at least since 2021, and I don't see the X on here at all. Finally then, GM announced today that they will be halting production at their truck assembly plant in Indiana for 2 weeks beginning March 27th. And the reason given here is the most interesting. They say that this is because their inventory has started to outweigh demand as supply chain challenges have eased. So interesting to see a lack of another excuse there from GM, and maybe a sign of more of that type of thing to come. All right, that is where we'll wrap it up for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Friday, February 24th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.